Let's get to our speaker. So this guy, I've known since I broke into the business. God, it's been a long time now. But I met his mom, Jola, and I don't know if you guys, anyone know Jola in here? Some of you? Okay. She's was the creative recruiter in Detroit. She placed everybody, knew everybody. She was wonderful. And because I was at Center for Creative Studies, or College for Creative Studies, I got to know Jola, and then she introduced me to Colin. Colin actually placed me in my first 2 jobs, which I'm forever grateful for. And we've stayed in touch over the years because he's such a great guy. He now recruits and places at some of the top agencies, really in the country. You know, he's obviously based here. He's a real family man. He's got a big family, lots of kids, some grown already, some still at home. And he's an incredible guy with an incredible amount of knowledge. It's interesting, when I talk to him, he will dig down and really figure out what's going on with you. So I think he's a good guy to know. Anyone in the career search mode, he's a good guy to know. And I think he's going to teach us a lot today. So let's give Colin Lalonde a warm round of applause.
Testing. Can everybody hear me? How's everybody doing?
Fantastic.
Great. My name's Colin Lalonde. I own a successful search firm. I place talent in advertising and marketing. I'm considered a subject expert. I'm an author, writer, and I also write a column in the Free Press. We've got a lot of information to pack in, but I think you're going to find it of value. There are 3 powerful methods I'm going to teach you today. How to create a career story narrative. Second, how to put together a career journal so you never forget anything in your career again. And I call it the triple threat. How to put together your cover letter, resume, and portfolio. If you look at history, what has captivated people the most? Great stories. In the movies or reading a book, what are the elements of a great story? There's the hero, that's you. The hero confronts his trials and tribulations, that's you going through your career. And he becomes transformed, and the story is resolved, and that's, of course, the results that you're always going to show throughout your career. The first step is creating an outline of your work history starting from college forward. Remember to list your accomplishments. I can't tell you how important listing your accomplishments are. Too many people explain their career in a job descriptive format. And again, I see this over and over again. Everybody describes a resume more in a dry, static format. And lastly, part of your story is also showing your personal side. Example, sports you play, hobbies, charities, causes you've donated to. A lot of people struggle with that. They say, Colin, should I put that in? Absolutely. It's a part of your story. It's a part of your narrative. Definitely incorporate your personal side. It shows your character. Again, it's a part of your story. When you go through your career timeline, you need to explain it as if every decision you made was calculated. Many of my candidates, when I sit down with them, they explain themselves in a very fragmented way. And that is just, the worst. And to give you an example of what I'm trying to tell you is you should explain yourself, and I want you to be truthful, but there's definitely a better way to explain your story. So, for example, I got out of college, I went here, I gathered these skill sets, then I went on to the next position, and I gathered those skill sets, and ultimately, this is where I'm at in my career, and that's why I'm sitting in front of you. But basically, you're presenting yourself as though you thought through every career decision you made in a very proactive way. Make sure you have a beginning, middle, and end to your career story. They all should have elements of the journey, how you went through the process, finding the solution, and most importantly, again, the positive outcome. After you've written your cover letter, timeline, pick the stories you feel that work best for the company you interview at. Now, I teach a technique called reverse engineering, and what that is after you find out where you're going to go, you go to LinkedIn, in fact, you can write this down, you find the company, and most importantly, the title that you're interviewing for, find people that have the same title, look at their profile, right? This is a little bit about competitive intelligence, and then you can draw parallels, and when you go in for an interview, you're coming across more as a better fit. And again, obviously you have to be truthful, but definitely you're going to have an edge over your competition if you're researching the people that already work at that company with that title. Remember, the elements of a story start with the challenge or obstacle, then how you overcame it. Memorize your stories so you're comfortable with them in your interview. My mom always told me memorization is the pearl of success. I myself used to always say, you know what, Mom, I don't want to do that. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do it on the fly. But I realized when you memorize, you're more prepared and you have the ability to present yourself in a more effective way. You will see a big difference in using this technique. Remember, the elements of a great story humanizes us and will help you make a stronger connection with the potential employer. Now, how to create a career journal. Now, everybody that I teach this to tells me how much more optimal they are in their career success. Most people do not keep track of their career accomplishments. This strategy helps you pull together your career story in a more compelling way. And if everyone kept track of their work accomplishments on a regular basis and they would always be prepared for anything. If you look on my website, I have be prepared everywhere. I believe preparation and being prepared, and I already brought up the memorization, you're going to have an edge over your competition. And most importantly, when you express yourself in an interview, if you do this, then you're going to have the edge over your competition. Now, how you pull together your career journal is first you need to create and find a cloud service. The one I use is Dropbox. There's Google Docs, and both are great to send all your work-related information to sort out later. Plus, they all are free, and they have 2 gigs of information, if not more. The areas, now this is important, as you journal, I'm going to give you examples, but you can add more. As you journal, you should be keeping track of it, big or small. These are the type of questions you need to ask yourself. Emails from a boss, coworkers telling you what a great job you did, project you completed and result. Letters of recommendation. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and they don't have letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation make my job a lot easier as a recruiter, and definitely the employer it's going to be way more effective when you meet with them. And then other questions you need to ask yourself is phone calls you feel are important to remember, whether it's a conference call with employees, any phone call you're making, and if you feel it's important, put that in your journal. Keeping track of revenue you directly impacted for your company, obviously that's a real plus, and later that can prove your value to the company. So now, this is how you do the career journal. The first thing you need to do is set up reoccurring alarms on your phone, computer, or tablet. Obviously, the phone would be the best. Setting up reoccurring weekly alarms on your calendar every Friday will ensure you will not forget what you did. So basically what I'm telling you is, every Friday, you take 10 minutes out when your alarm goes off. You go through those questions, and then you set up, and then after you do that, you set up your alarm monthly. After that, you set up a reoccurring alarm at the end of every month. This will tie it all together over the last 4 weeks. So you do the weekly, then you do the once a month, and you simply review the past 4 weeks in your career journal, so you have a month of work-related information. Is everybody following me? Every Friday, then you pull together the 4 weeks, and then you have a month's work. And then lastly, at the end of the year, you have 12 months of work-related information. You then review the last 12 months of your work accomplishments and add it to your resume. I can't tell you a better way to start your first year, January 1, being able to review the last 12 months, very detailed. Some of the caveats of it is, when you're doing a performance review, you're going to be way more in control, and obviously everybody wants a raise, right? Is that true? Everybody wants a raise, and I think doing this, you're going to be way more effective. The other caveat, there's multiple reasons why you should have a career journal. So let's say you have an issue with an employee, right? Or the boss comes to you, he said, she said. You're going to be able to go back to that particular day or that week and review what went on because you're going to have it in your career journal. Does that all make sense to you? Okay, so the value is never again will you need to remember what you did yesterday, last month, or last year. It allows you to keep track of what you have accomplished. This allows you to remember the compelling story narratives in your career. And most importantly, you will never forget any of your work accomplishments again. Many times when I sit down with candidates and we start reviewing their career, they'll say, like, if you're a creative, Colin, I lost that, my partner has that. Can everybody relate to that? Or, you start pulling together your information, you can't even remember what happened the year before. So really the career journal is a very effective way to optimize yourself and be ready for any opportunity. The reward, if you do this consistently for the rest of your career, you will always be prepared and it will increase your confidence, obviously. Most importantly, you will never forget any of your work accomplishments again. This method will help you get your resume first in line for any possible job opportunity over those who procrastinate working on their resume. Again, I call on a candidate. Most of the time it's, Colin, I gotta work on my resume. Usually takes 2 weeks. Well, you're gonna lose an edge, right? At least I know that. And I'm gonna move on. So if you have the career narrative, you do the career journaling, you're gonna be very prepared, whether it's a recruiter, HR person, and I'd say 95% of the candidates I call on, they do not have an updated resume, and I think this will remedy that. Now, the triple threat. I believe this is what pulls together your career story. Your cover letter, your resume, online portfolio can be very effective if it is written in a clean, bullet point, narrative story format. Now, here's an example of a cover letter. Now, you would say, well, that looks a little unorthodox, that's something I wouldn't do. But really, this has been very successful for me and my candidates. You got your impact statement at the top, then you've got your elements of what you do for a living, and then you have your key competencies on the bottom. Now this sort of sets up, this is why I call it the triple threat, and it ties into that whole beginning, middle, and end. It is setting up the reader, and they clearly can see it in a clear way, setting up the interviewer to read what they're going to see in the resume. It's preemptively setting that up. Now, you can see in a resume impact statements, such as successfully launched 2009, foreign participation recorded at first ever with segment, exceeded sales goals, which is, you definitely should put in fiscal information, not just what you've done successfully. Exceeded sales goals, exceeded retail segment shares. I believe resumes should not be paragraphs and paragraphs of information. It should be more bullet point, quantitative, and qualitative. This sets up the employer to what they will see in the candidate's online career portfolio. Online portfolios allow you to show you the visual of your work you stated in your cover letter and resume. You see how you're building it? The cover letter is setting up the resume, read the resume, and everyone should have an online portfolio. Online portfolio should be in a case study format. Now here is the visual of the impact statements of the resume. So some of those impact statements that I showed you in the resume now are coming to life in a visual way. Does that make sense to you? So this particular person, I like the way they set this up. And also I want you to pay attention to the bottom. He also has introduction, experience, accomplishments, point of view, case studies, which I'm showing you, and testimonials. I can't tell you how important those testimonials are. So he starts out with his case study format with the situation. Then, as you can see in the case study, he puts the objective, the strategy, the tactics, and the result. And I think you can see as I've done this presentation, results are so critical. I mean, and if anybody's in the digital business, everybody seems to have the great story, but the story falls apart at the end. Derek, you know what I mean, Derek? It just falls apart because a lot of people don't have the result. Results are so important in how you present yourself. Now, again, the cover letter, resume, and online portfolio of your work, it pulls it all together. This will give you an advantage over your competition using these methods. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Again, my name is Colin Milan. This is my information. And I understand from Derek we have some Q&A.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
we can, if you have a question, raise your hand. Anything you want to know from a recruiter, and I'll walk around and, we got a question up here. Okay.
Hi, Colin. Thanks
Hi.
very much. Tell us a little bit more about the online portfolio. It looks to me like a website.
Okay.
And so just
Sure.
expand on that for us,
So
please.
everybody should write this down. Wix, I'm sure you've seen it on TV. Everybody go to Wix.com. Okay, that is the place where it's all plug and play. It's a templated website, and Wix would be a great place to do your online portfolio. Online portfolios, when I talk to people, they always say to me, Colin, I thought that was just for creatives, right? It's for project managers, it's for engineers, it's for anybody. And then obviously using the case study format, when you, again, like I told you, when you're doing the resume, those impact statements you're making in your resume, then it comes to life visually. And I definitely, I wouldn't be, the triple threat is a formula that I know works because I'm a headhunter. I know what works and I see the success of it. A lot of people don't have a cover letter and they certainly don't have an online portfolio. And the resume usually, for better lack of words, sucks, a lot of the time. But that's my value. I help people, I help them rewrite it. Again, a lot of people are very paragraph driven. So the online portfolio, I feel, is an ability to give that visualization of all your work. Does that make sense? It really works. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Thank you.
Question. So I'm curious, like when you're hiring people,
Yeah.
what are a few of the top criteria that you really look for so you know you're getting a good employee or someone that you'd really be comfortable placing? What are some of the, this is slightly different from your talk, but I know you're experiencing this.
Well, not really. I talked about, accomplishments, part of that career story narrative. I talked about having letters of recommendation. I can't tell you how many people don't have letters of recommendation. The first thing I do to qualify myself to people is I say, I have 80 recommendations on LinkedIn. When you go meet an employer, you're qualifying yourself big time by having letters of recommendation. So what you're asking me, Derek, is, what are some of the elements that I'm looking for? I'm looking for what I said, preparedness. Be prepared. I'm looking for you to have your information memorized so that you can express it to me in a clear format. I mentioned in this presentation that many people explain themselves in a very fragmented way. Okay, by being prepared, having a narrative, having the cover letter, having the resume, having the website. These are all tools to optimize your success. Does that make sense to everybody? And most people don't have a narrative. They don't have their story, more or less. People express themselves in a very dry way. This is what I did, this is where I worked. You need to turn it, you need to animate. And those elements of memorization, being prepared, working hard at your brand. If you go to my blog, changingfast.com, I write a column in the Free Press, and I think you'll find a lot of that information very informative. And ultimately, this is just a few modules of how you brand yourself. But I thought through when I came here, I said, I have a short amount of time. I want to get across some effective ways of how to be successful in your career. And I definitely think, like the career journaling. I mean, has anybody ever thought of doing that? The career journaling? No. And it's so easy. Every Friday, all you have to do is review what you've done that week, upload it. You know how many times, it actually has blown my mind. Obviously I'm not going to name names. I have called on, digital people that are very well known in the business. I'll say, hey, can you send me an updated resume? And then they say, well, I'll have to go home and get it off my computer. Like, what? It doesn't make sense to me. You could easily have all your information up in Dropbox. I don't know, is anybody familiar with Dropbox? Okay. I love Dropbox, okay? You can create folders, you can create just a hot link on any file. You don't even have to send the file. I mean, you could have big files. All you gotta do is just send the link to somebody, they just click on it, and boom, they can download it, go right to it. The elements that I've been discussing today are really about you optimizing yourself as a brand, if that makes sense. It's being more prepared for opportunity, and most importantly, getting introspective about, well, who am I? Where was I? Just at the beginning of the presentation, I explained, this is the fundamentals of a great story, why we're drawn to a story. I'm trying to get you to understand that you sort of need to convert yourself in that manner. Yes?
Okay, so I have a comment and then a question. So on your career journal comments, which I think is fantastic, but
Yeah.
something that you didn't mention, which I think is relevant,
Sure.
is that compiling the career journal itself,
Mm-hmm.
chances are will keep you focused on what you're actually trying to achieve in your job. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the week, if you don't have anything to say, that's a signal to yourself that I'm not actually moving towards my ultimate targets here.
Exactly.
So even if you didn't need it for marketing, even if you just wanted to stay in your own job, it's going to keep you focused on what are my targets and am I meeting those targets.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. I mean, obviously in the presentation I mentioned a few things, but definitely grow that list of questions you want to ask yourself every Friday. What phone calls, and like I said, a lot of the caveats, which I learned from people through teaching them this is, I had, my boss accused me of something I didn't do, and because I documented and I had all that information up in my Dropbox, I was easily able to present to my boss that wasn't true. Or, like I said, when you go in for a review for a job, I mean, obviously we all want a raise, right? Well, if you can prove to your employer over the last 6 months, 3 months, quantitatively, qualitatively, I mean, that's sort of the flavor here. I mean, I use that word a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm making it very, they want results. Employers want your results. They don't want to hear anything else. They want to see what you've contributed historically in your career. And again, to reinforce that career narrative, you're building just like those elements of the career story. You want all those different elements involved in it.
So Matt, my question
Yes.
is, what are the trends that you're seeing at the moment for which areas are hiring and which are not hiring?
Great question. What's it called? There's a great website. I wrote an article about it. But to answer your question, I'm very analytical. I call myself the analytical headhunter. Okay? So I'll give you an example, like a case study. Okay, many kids go to school, and this is for anybody if they have kids and they're about to send their kids to college. There's 2 lies that a parent taught their kids. Do what you love and you'll be happy. And if you get good grades, you'll be successful. That's just not true. Okay? Because to your answer, meaning if you do the data, so let's say you go to school in a history major, right? You come out and you're working at Starbucks. Now, there's nothing wrong with working at Starbucks. I'm not trying to demean anybody, but the point is that you're $120,000 in debt, and you don't have a job. So there's government websites, like for instance, Indeed. Indeed has a whole analytical charts on the bottom. You've ever heard of Indeed? Indeed is a job. Well, a lot of people don't realize on the bottom there is an analysis to show you where things are trending. So my point is that there's data out there to show you where things are growing, where things are hot. There's a subject I wrote about in the Free Press recently that's controversial. I was talking about is it really all that valuable to go to college? And the reason I wrote it is is mobile developers, okay? There's a course, so if you have an aptitude, right, for development, so A, in the article, which you can read, you go to school for 4 years, you're $120,000 in debt, you got a computer engineering degree, or you can go to 2 or 3 of these very reputable mobile development schools, and they guarantee you after, I think it's like 8 weeks or 10 weeks, it's $16,000, so it's not that cheap. But these kids are coming out of these certification programs making $100K, okay? So that answers the question that, you want to go where things are in high growth. Indeed, like I said, has a tool on the bottom where you type in the title and you can see if that's trending up or trending down. I mean, some of the things are pretty easy. Healthcare, digital are all in high growth. But certainly, if you love something, learn to love something through research and go towards that versus something you just naturally love and think because you love it. If you're dependent on it financially, you're going to learn to hate it, if that makes sense. Did that answer your question?
Well, somewhat. I'm just wondering what you thought was...
What was hot?
Yeah, what do you
Was it
see
high
through
growth?
your work as seeing is the highest?
Oh,
think
mobile developers, that's one of them. I'm placing a lot of analytical people. In the analytical family, again, I can't think of the government website right now, but there's a government website that breaks down what school to go to, what companies to work for. It's people email me, I'll give it to you. But a lot of high growth is analytics, and in analytics you have statisticians, which sounds really boring, but and then analysts, and then a lot of people that I'm placing are what they call analytics strategists. And obviously, if you're in the digital business, everything is coming down to data modeling and analytics. So I'm finding myself consumed with that. Another thing is Indeed is a litmus. The website is a litmus. You do job searches. You'll see in those graphs, you'll see, well, okay, mobile developers, high growth. Analytics, high growth. You can, just by doing a little bit of an analysis of even what these job sites are looking for, will tell you where things are trending. Does that make sense to you?
Who else has a question? Here we go.
Well, it's not so much a question, but I've got one of those daughters who's just out of college and needs a job. So can we get those slides?
I can send you some of the information if you request it, like the cover letter, the resume.
Just an outline of what she needs.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome.
You know, another thing, I'm in my 50s now, but I'm a little bit of a stickler on telling young people about just having manners. These kids come up to me today and they do this sort of like fishy shake. Right there I'm like sort of turned off. So I even do this class where I teach you, when you come in to shake a hand, hit here first, then come in with a strong handshake. A lot of young people today not only need help with where to find a job, but they also need preparation and how to present themselves. Using the right etiquette. But sure, yeah, absolutely.
Here we go. Question.
So you talked a little bit about the story and having great career stories. So tell us the best career story you've heard from a candidate in the past year.
Great career story from a candidate. Well, a lot of the data that I give you is based off of observations. People that, so for instance, I'm very analytical. So my mom did it for 40 years. I've done it for 25 years. Over time, because of the position I'm in, working with so many different companies and so many different people, I have the ability to start to see, why are these people successful and why are these people not successful? And there's certain characteristics, which I was trying to show you today, of what makes people very successful. I definitely think, in general, people, not only in this year, but any year, people that are up on their LinkedIn profile, leveraging and utilizing social networks to build your brand. You'll see when you go to my website and a lot of the articles I write in the Detroit Free Press, you'll find that it's all about branding. It's all about exposing yourself. It's all about, a lot of people say to me, I'll say, I really want you to write your resume as if you have the biggest ego in the world. And a lot of people naturally here in the Midwest push back on that, especially not so much out in LA, but you know, it's if you're going to have an ego when it comes to your career, if that makes sense. I'd rather have you over the top, explaining yourself like you have the biggest head in the world than you minimizing yourself. So I believe the candidates that are very successful are people that are promoting themselves constantly. You know, promoting yourself personally and talking about personal things, yeah, I think that's a big turnoff. But promoting yourself, you know, I spoke at, or, you know, showing visual case studies online of your newest thing, I think that's the elements of creating a successful career. I didn't give you one specific person, but I was trying to give you in general what I think creates a successful person.
Colin, you know, the benefit of doing this, it sounds like to me, is that if you do this type of work, so if you tell your story properly,
Yes.
you'll get hired and you'll get paid more. Is that pretty much it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then obviously be in a high growth area, like this gentleman said. You know, obviously, my mom taught me, you know, when people call you and you can't place them, at least you can offer some assistance on what they need to do. But definitely a recruiter or any company is going to find people more attractive if they're in arenas that are high. And again, I do a whole thing on competitive intelligence, and I've written several articles on it, and I really encourage everybody to go look, but definitely getting more into research, competitive intelligence. I use one of my tenets in my programs I teach is don't reinvent the wheel, okay? So LinkedIn is a very powerful tool. If you're looking to write a better resume, start looking at profiles of people that write them really well, right? When you're looking for a job, just don't look for a job here in Michigan. Look to see what the jobs are in New York and LA. Start reading the job descriptions. Cross-reference them. Start researching companies. Look at the employees under those titles at those companies, like I showed you that trick for yourself. Okay? This is going to optimize you and empower you with better branding yourself and drawing parallels to any opportunity that comes your way. And most importantly, going through all these different, this is, you know, I can't explain everything in this presentation, but going through these steps is going to allow you to increase your odds of being much more successful in your career. Does that make sense?
I have one more question based on compensation. So what do you think about the concept of that you should set someone's pay rate not based on years of experience or seniority, but on level of productivity?
Say that again?
Okay, so you should set someone's salary or pay somebody not based on years of experience, but based on their output and productivity.
Right. And that's where the career journaling so you have an employee, right, Derek?
Right.
Somebody comes and sits down with you and says, you know, I've been recording pretty much everything I've done, and they show it to you in a PowerPoint presentation. You're going to feel more inclined, even you as the owner of the company. You know, you might not remember all the things your employees are doing, but if your employee remembers all of it and reminds you, it might change your mind in giving that person a raise.
Right. So you're basically showing us how to demonstrate the productivity.
Right.
So we can maybe have a couple years experience and look at what we did.
Right.
Or can accomplish.
Right. The career journal, like I said, can help you in so many ways. I mean, like this gentleman said, it's just giving you that confidence of either, or not confidence, it's either telling you, wow, I'm not doing much, you know. A quick example, a lot of people say, well, yeah, I took this job because it paid a lot of money. But if the company that you're working for isn't going to allow you to be results driven, then 2 years later, even though you made more money, 2 years later, you're actually not going to make that money anymore, right? Because you didn't have the quantitative results that you need to keep moving forward in your career. So sometimes actually taking a step back and working at a company that can help you with your narrative and story is going to be way more effective and help you move forward in your career. I mean, ultimately, everything that I teach people is trying to increase your odds of being more successful. And again, this is a short presentation. I encourage everybody to go to my blog. I'm changing fast, read a lot of the free press articles. I talk about, I have other blog articles too, but I definitely think I pulled together all the different modules of how to be successful in your career.
Awesome. All right, do we have any more questions, or should we go to introductions? All right, let's give our speaker a big round of applause. Thank you, sir. Wonderful talk.